Good evening. It's nearly 10 o'clock on Thursday evening and all my little loves are tucked up in bed. My husband's gone to bed quite early tonight because he's going to go ski touring again tomorrow, and he'll have to be up quite early for that. So I'm just having to whisper so that I don't wake anyone up. I've just spent a really pleasant few hours since I put my children to bed knitting, and I've just cast on a new project, which is a little hat for my daughter. I'm so excited. I've not made her anything since she was a baby, and all of a sudden I'm just feeling really inspired to make her something. So I think I mentioned a couple of days ago that I'd made a little bonnet, sort of pixie bonnet for one of her dolls, and both children tried to put it on, but of course it was too small, and so they've both sort of requested their own, and I already had more or less just bought a pattern by Sophie, who works under the name Gold Noose, and I think it's called the Oscar Pixie bonnet, and I'd bought it because I wanted to make one for the yet to be born baby of a very dear friend back in England, but it just so happens that I'm now going to knit one for my children. So I've started with my daughter's one because I don't have the yarn yet for my son's. His favourite colour is red, and I don't have enough red yarn in my stash, so I may be going to order some over the weekend, but I'm just waiting to see if I'm going to plan any other projects before I put in a last yarn order for the year. But I did have some yarn in my stash for my little girl, and you won't be able to see very well, but oh, actually it's not too bad. So this is a very gorgeous golden coloured yarn from the French yarn company. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. That's the village church. We live right by the church. This is from the French yarn company de Rarem Natura, and I'm not entirely sure why the ball looks like this. Perhaps I started a project and unravelled it, I can't quite remember, but anyway, this was what it looked like in my stash. So it's 100 grams, and I think it's a worsted weight, although it feels quite thin to me. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Anyway, so I started the hat, and this is the progress I've made so far. It's so much fun to knit. It's an absolute delight. So she'll be 2.5 in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm making her the age 3 to 4 size, because I'd like it to do for her for this year and hopefully for next year. So I hope it's not going to be too big, but if it is, it doesn't matter. I'll make her another one, because I think this is going to knit up quite quickly, and she can have this one for next year. But yeah, so knitting on my needles, it's so much fun. I've not knitted for anyone for, I can't even remember when I last knitted for someone, and I'm so happy to be knitting again. I have felt so uninspired for years. I think it's very much to do with not being very well. My various sort of strands of creativity at different times have all just flopped and kind of burnt out, and yeah, it was kind of starting to really upset me a few weeks ago, but I've just started with a new counsellor. I think I started about a month ago, a psychologist who I see twice a month, and she's based in the town that's half an hour away, so it's a bit of a drive, but it's really worth it. She's a young psychologist and she has a CBT approach to things, which was what I wanted. So I've only seen her about 3 times so far, so we're still very much at the start of getting to know each other, and we haven't really started any proper CBT yet, but when she sort of responds to things I say, I know it's coming from a place of CBT, so it's really helping, and I feel finally like I'm starting to move forward with my diagnosis of bipolar disorder, which I was given 2 years ago when I was hospitalised following the birth of my daughter in a psychiatric unit. And I was just very poorly when I was pregnant with her. I was severely depressed, and I know now that I was having a mixed episode, so depression with manic features, and I was put on treatment at the end of my pregnancy. I was hospitalised just before she was born because they were really worried about me, and yeah, then I was hospitalised for 6 weeks after she was born in a mother and baby unit, and I've been having support from a therapist, from a psychologist for the last 2.5 years. It began when I was pregnant, and then it stopped when my daughter turned 2 this year. So that was through an early years prevention centre, and that was free. But as I live in France, and because that's no longer possible for me to have, because my daughter's too old, I now have to pay for the support I have, but it's what I need right now, and I'm really glad to have found someone who seems to be helping, and I am really glad to feel like I'm starting to come out of this really long depressive episode that's lasted for a long time, and that, you know, possibly now, although I will have bipolar for the rest of my life, and I will probably have depressive episodes again in the future, because mine is a type of bipolar where you have a lot of depression, and quite severe depression, and it's difficult to stabilise your mood. But I feel like I'm starting to come to terms with that diagnosis. My psychologist is helping me to understand that diagnosis, what it means for me, why I've been given it, and what that means in my day-to-day. But with her CBT approach, she's helping me to not only unravel my situation, but particularly to unravel unhelpful thought patterns and different responses that I have. And yeah, I'm very much at the start of it. I have had CBT in the past when I was much younger, to help me cope with a different medical problem, which is that I was diagnosed with ME when I was 11, and myalgic encephalitis, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, which is not a great name. But so I live with these 2 companions, and at varying times they've both had quite an impact on my daily life, on my family life, on my relationship with my husband, on my studies, on my work. Basically they affect everything, and I'm saying they because I think the bipolar, although it's more recent, I think it's been there for probably 8 or 9 years. It's hard to say really. I'm still trying to pinpoint when I think things began, but yeah. So it's funny, I wasn't intending to talk about this, but actually it feels really cozy tonight, and because the house is all quiet and I feel quite safe, and I want to be open about my health, about my ME. I've been open about that for quite a while, and I've been open about my mental health since I became really poorly, because to me it's, well, ME is an illness that's very misunderstood by the vast majority of the population, including medical professionals. So there's that. Obviously medical, psychological illnesses have stigma attached to them, particularly bipolar. But for me it's not so much about that, it's just about being open about the challenges I face in my day-to-day life, because they impact the way our family life is run, my work patterns when I have them, and yeah, like other things like my creativity, my ability to be present in family life, in daily life even. I feel like I'm coming back to life actually after a really long time where there's been no joy, there's been no hope, and there's been no love actually, for me. I have an amazing web of love around me from my family, who, although they live far away and in another country, we're really close. I have my husband, I have my children, and they're all there for me, and I'm so grateful, and I recognise how lucky I am, because it's not always the case, particularly with mental health problems. And the more I learn about my own condition, the more I'm learning about other people's conditions and other mental health illnesses, and yeah, I recognise that I've got a lot of blessings in my life, but it's hard when an illness stops you seeing them, when an illness means that you can't see the sun in the sky, and you can't see the beauty around you, and you can't enjoy the simplest things. You can't even get out of bed in the morning because you've just got no energy. And that's true for ME and for bipolar depression. ME is a very physical illness, and I've had periods in my teenage years and my early 20s where I've been very, very poorly. I was so poorly that I was in bed. I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't leave the house. When I did have to leave the house, it was in a wheelchair. I couldn't go to school, obviously, and although I was desperately poorly physically, I was still functioning mentally, emotionally, and I found ways of coping that astound me now when I look back, and I think, gosh, how did I manage to do that at such a young age? And then by complete contrast, this bipolar has kind of come into my life, and I don't really know why it has, and I don't know why it affects me in depression more than mania or hypomania. But it just saps my energy in a completely different way, and it saps all colour out of the world, and all joy and happiness and hope. And I experienced this really severe depressive episode when I was pregnant, and it really impacted our family life, my relationship with my husband, my self-confidence, my self-love. It's left me feeling really wounded, and it's literally just in the last 6 weeks I feel like I'm starting to heal, and it's been such a long time. It's been so long since I felt joy and wanting to do things and getting pleasure from things that are so simple but yet used to bring me so much joy, like knitting, reading books with my children, cooking, going for walks. I've been terrified to go outside, and I've just started walking again, and it's amazing. Just little walks, not anything big, but just to be out in the fresh air, just to be outside, to feel my legs moving. And it's, like I said earlier, it feels like I'm coming back to life, and it's sort of just coinciding with us reaching the end of the year, and you know, this has been a really tough year for everyone, and last year particularly. You know, I was able to see my parents about a month ago, and I had not seen them for 2.5 years because of COVID. When they last saw my little girl, she was a newborn baby, and now she's a very active toddler. And you know, that's been tough, and it remains tough. There's a lot of restrictions in France. There's a lot of big questions about the way things are being managed, about how we should care for one another in society, and you know, it's stressful and it's hard, and yet I can feel like my courage returning, and I'm looking forward to the end of year festivities for the first time in such a long time. I'm getting pleasure from being with my children. I'm managing to care for them, to be left alone with them, to cook for them, to take my son to school, to put them both to bed. All things that I've just been unable to do for so long, and I just want to celebrate it, and I just want to tell you about it because it's such a big thing for our family and for me. And as I said, you know, I'm sure that there'll be tough times ahead, and you know, I don't know how long this good period is going to last. I don't know when the depression is going to come again knocking at our door, but to just feel it leaving and to feel myself being restored is just such a wonderful thing. And I think I just want to share it because I know that there's people watching who are going through tough things, health problems, family situations, and I don't have any advice, I don't have any words or miracle cures, far from it. You know, I'm not a magician, but when I was desperately poorly, it helped me so much to know that there are people who've gone through the same thing as me and they have come out the other side. And even if the challenge has not disappeared, even if the diagnosis has not gone away, or the loved one has passed away, or the situation has remained the same, to know that it is possible to find strength somewhere, and hope somewhere, and love somewhere. It really helped me. And you know, if you're struggling with something at the moment, my heart really goes out to you, and I just want you to know you're not alone, whatever it is. And I also want to say, you know, I'm sharing my preparations for the end of the year in these weeks leading up to Christmas or solstice or New Year or whatever you want to call it. And this year I'm excited and I'm looking forward to it, but as I said, this is the first time for a long time, and it also helped me when I was really struggling to know that it's okay to find this time of year tough, to feel lonely, to feel sad, to feel lost, left out. And what I'm really holding on to this year, and it's kind of appropriate I suppose because it's the evening now and it's all quiet and it's all soft lights, I'm just trying to find light in the darkness wherever it is, and whatever that means to you, finding that strength and that spark. And I guess that's why this year I'm holding on to, or putting so much emphasis for our little family on our Advent wreath. It just feels so symbolic to me, because for me it feels like my candle's been lit again and there's still darkness all around. It's dark outside my window and it's dark in this room, but there is light to be found somewhere, even in the darkness. And yeah, I just wanted to share that this evening. And I also just wanted to share my knit joy, because this is amazing and I'm so happy to be knitting again. And the last thing I want to share, because it's so exciting, is when I just went upstairs just before filming to get my camera. I looked out the window and it was snowing, and it wasn't supposed to snow tonight, and yet it's all white outside. So when my children wake up in the morning, it's gonna be all white, and I'm so excited. So I'm gonna say goodnight now, because it's time for me to go to bed, and I'm gonna leave you with the snow, and I wish you good night. Bye bye. See you tomorrow.